Welcome back everybody to the Monster Bass channel. My name is Brandon Stoker, and in today's episode we're going to be talking about the Big Bites BB Kicker. Before we jump into it, guys, if you love tips and tricks videos on lures, where to throw them, when to throw them, what setups to use, I highly recommend you guys give this video a like. Make sure you subscribe to the Monster Bass channel. They're always putting out videos of how to use lures, when to throw them, and stuff like that. So if you're into that, want some tips and stuff like that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. So down below in the description, my channel is going to be linked, called Wisconsin Wildman. I do a lot of fishing in the Midwest, especially here in Wisconsin. So if you guys are interested in stuff like that, I'm doing a ton of bass fishing, especially tournament angling. So if you guys are into that stuff, go down below in the description and please like, subscribe. But like I said, we're going to talk about the Big Bites BB Kicker. You might have received this in your Monster Bass box, and we're going to talk about why this is such a good selection of a bait to get in this month's box. And I've got 3 different ways that I'm going to show you guys how you can rig this up for some big bites. First, we got to talk about what's happening this time of the year. So here in the Midwest region, especially in Wisconsin, the temperature is really dropping. So we're entering kind of that fall transition period, and we're also getting into the fall bite. So we got to think about, okay, so what are the bass doing this time of the year? So this time of the year, guys, those fish are coming out from the deep holes, deep pockets, and things like that, and they're starting to push bait fish. They're starting to push shad. They're starting to push them up into shallow coves, shallow bays, and they're just chasing balls of bait. A bass, their biological clock is telling them this time of the year they need to feed up for the winter time. Naturally, like I said, they're going to push all that bait up into those shallow pockets, shallow coves, and they're going to start feeding heavy on a lot of different bait fish, especially shad, big balls of bait and stuff like that. So make sure you're looking at, what do you got going on for bait in that area. Maybe you have perch, maybe you have shad, maybe you have sunfish, stuff like that. You're really going to want to key in on what the bait are, and early mornings are going to be really good time to find those schools of bait just getting pushed up shallow. Now, what makes this Big Bites BB Kicker so great? Well, we're gonna peel it out of the package here, and I will tell you guys, this thing is the perfect bait for this time of the year, especially here in Wisconsin. This thing right here, look at that beauty right there. That thing is the perfect presentation you need to be giving bass this time of the year. Like I said, they're going to be chasing bait fish. They're going to be chasing shad and stuff up shallow. This is a perfect presentation. What I really like about this bait right here is how big this paddle tail is. It's pretty darn good size. It's got some good color to it. It's got a perfect shad representation right here. This is something that personally myself, I actually was just tossing it out on the water the other day. So I'm going to show you guys a few different ways to rig this up. First way to rig it up, and this is something that I tend to use more towards the fall transition, and that's going to be one of these weighted swim bait hooks. As you guys can see, there's a little bit of a weight on here, and there's also a corkscrew deal here that helps you guys hold the bait on there. First thing, we're going to rig it up. So you have the little corkscrew end there. You're basically just going to screw the head of the bait right onto there, and you're just going to get it all the way to the top. These do a really good job at holding this bait on here without ruining it every single time you end up catching one. So screw it on all the way to the top where you hit the eye of the hook. Now, basically, it's like so, and then you're just going to take the hook, go through the bottom of the bait, and come through the back side. You can see that hook point up here is just flush with the top of the bait right here. You can see the hook point. If this thing ever is getting snagged up on weeds, you can tuck the hook point, but for the most part, this is exactly how I leave it rigged up. Great about this presentation, guys, here is early fall transition. You're going to have a lot of time where you're still going to have weeds. Fall time, those weeds and stuff are going to start dying off, but early fall, they're not quite dead. So if you have a lot of weeds in your lake, this is a perfect presentation because this is weedless. You can throw it out there, bomb it into a good weed patch, and pull it right through. You can even throw it on top of dollar pads if you still have pads around, and run this sucker right on top. Now, this is a perfect presentation for the fall time. So now the next method of rigging this up, and this is my absolute favorite way to fish a big swim bait, especially for smallmouth bass, and that's going to be on your typical swim bait hook right here. Now, this thing, as you guys can see, the bottom of it is it's kind of curved right there. So whenever you're fishing this along rock, which I really love throwing this spot around a lot of riprap and rock for smallmouth, this will just sit there and deflect right off of the rock so you don't get snagged up. Now, this is, like I said before, this is my favorite way to do it. So all you're going to do to rig this up is you're just going to thread the swim bait right onto the hook. What you're going to do, guys, here is you're just going to go through the head of this thing and just thread it right onto the hook. All right, so when you have it rigged up, basically this is what you guys have left. You just have a swim bait, normal swim bait hook, and the hook is coming right out of the top of it. Now what's nice about a presentation like this, like I said before guys, fishing it around rock is the main spot that I love to fish this around. I love fishing it for smallies in particular, but I like having an exposed hook if you can. If you don't have to worry about weeds, this is the option you're gonna wanna go with. Having an exposed hook is just gonna help out with your hookup ratio. Why I love the size of this swim bait right here is when you're fishing for bass in the fall time, you're gonna have them, like I said before, schooling up those big baits of fish, and when they're just seeing those big balls of bait, they're just hammering at them. So you want something that's bigger, something that stands out to the fish so they see it as a nice easy meal and they're gonna go for it. If you just have too small of a paddle tail, you're not gonna get as many bites in my opinion, or as many big bites. So with one of these baits right here being a little bit bigger paddle tail, you're definitely gonna generate more bites and bigger bites. So now the final way that I love to use this bait is going to be throwing an underspin with it. So an underspin, just like this one right here. And conveniently enough, this one actually came in my Monster Bass box. So see what I did there? You can kind of use this and the big paddle tail, you know what I mean? So you don't have to go buy something else. So yes, the underspin is a great way. If I feel like I'm just not getting bites the other ways, like maybe I'm throwing the swim bait exposed hook and maybe I'm getting some bites, they're just small bites and you want to stand out even more. Or maybe it's a really sunny day. This is going to shimmer in the water amazing. Or you have a little bit windier day, something like that. You want to set yourself apart. The underspin is absolute killer. So I'm going to thread one of these on reel here real quick, and it's the same way as the other swim bait, the normal swim bait hook. All you're doing is coming through the nose of this thing and threading it on there. And this thing is just absolute killer. I'll show you guys. This thing is, there you guys have it. That is absolute killer. You're gonna get a ton of action from the paddle tail, but then you're gonna have the blade that's gonna give off that good and nice shimmer. Like I said before, this is a great time for sunny days. I was actually just throwing this underspin with this paddle tail just the other day and ended up cranking in a couple 3.5 pounders with this thing. I was throwing around a swim jig a ton, and then I grabbed out the swim bait, threw on the underspin, and boom, started getting bites like crazy. I just felt like this underspin, with especially on a really sunny day, it just shimmers so nicely. Represents bait fish, shad, moving, kind of schooling up, you know, and they see this big bait fish going through. They see that swim bait. It looks like a big shad to them, along with that shimmer, and they just can't help themselves. So now for a setup, guys, that I'm going to use this bait on, for the most part, I use like a 1/4 ounce, usually like a weighted hook. Otherwise, I use like a 1/4 ounce swim bait head, something like that. And then with the swim bait is plenty of weight. And I usually use a medium heavy fast action rod. If you have super stained water, I'd go with maybe some 20-pound braid, 20-30 pound braid, depending on how many weeds are in the area. Otherwise, I go with maybe 15 to 20 pound fluorocarbon. That's usually what I throw mine on, is about 20 pound fluorocarbon. But medium heavy rod, medium heavy fast action rod, perfect setup for throwing this swim bait. You guys have it. 3 different ways to rig your Big Bites BB Kicker bait. Great bait for this time of the year, like I said before. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Remember to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys on the next one.